looks like we have to be less formal here, so we don't have large audience. But again, thanks for coming into LA DataCon. For me, USC brings a lot of memories, although it was always my passion and dream to go to this university. Unfortunately, financial circumstances 4.5 decades ago prevented me from being able to attend, and being a foreign student at the time and hardly spoke English, that even limited my opportunities to apply for scholarships and so on. But it's great, great campus. I always wished that I would have been here. My kids ended up going different reputable universities. They didn't fulfill my dream, but I'm here. It brings a lot of memories because I used to go to the libraries here and help tutor a lot of my colleagues. Anyways, thanks for the introduction. Yes, I am Executive VP at Systech Solutions, one of the companies locally based near downtown Los Angeles in Glendale. I live in Southern California. I've been here, at least for the past 4.5 decades. When I came to this country, I landed the other coast. I was in New York, Providence, Rhode Island, going to Brown University. The cold weather, paved the way that I come to the West Coast, and this was where I wanted it to go, but ended up going to night school because financial-wise, I couldn't do it. So worked full-time, and then got both my master's in computer science and finance and business at nighttime universities. I'm personally grateful to this country as an immigrant, being the first generation, that allowed me to get where I am, from immigrant student to basically an established business executive. And with that said, the topic that I chose that is appropriate, we'll let my new invitees get seated, and I'll start with that. I chose innovating with data because all of our life not only is changing, but it'll change even more dramatically. If I could do one thing in this presentation, in this talk, is to further inspire you, because I know those of you who are either in the data science, as data citizens, that you're involved, you're already passionate about the power of what I call big data and harnessing the power of big data. So innovating with data is the topic, and I want to acknowledge my colleagues, Rob Thomas, who is star at IBM now, moving upward to even going beyond the senior executive he is. He has a great book called Data Revolution. So if you ever get a chance, I'll give you the notation at the end. Buy it, because that book will do you tremendous good. I believe that. Also, I'm acknowledging when you want to do anything in business, you really want to align what I call corporate strategies with business innovation and, of course, using the data and technologies. But the alignment is very key. I wanted to also bring to attention, if you ever read Dr. Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard, that will give you some perspective in, how do you take the alignment when you're applying it to the business or monetizing it in the business and all that. And one more colleague, I'll be using 2-3 of his slides in this presentation, who works with me at the C-level capacity, Joseph, also very passionate about advanced analytics and adaptive analytics. So I'll be sharing some of that slides with you. But most of all, again, we live in a data era, and I thought, the way I'm going to take this presentation, again, let these colleagues get seated, and it's quite a walk from the other side to this side. So let me pause for just 1 second.
Thank you. Yeah, the map in the app took us to the wrong cell.
I know.
Maybe just start fresh.
I'll do that briefly. Yes, you're right. The crowd is finally here. Yeah. then you need to move my time slide a little bit, adjust for 4 or 5 minutes. Thanks for walking over. I know it's not easily marked. I got myself confused a little bit, but we're here. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joey Beidatshoo. For the past 3.5 decades, to give out my age, I've been working in a high-tech sector. Most of my experience revolves around analytics. Initially, in the early days, it was the adoption of business intelligence. Later, of course, analytics. And today, it's all about the adoption of cloud, mobile, social, and then augmenting that with what we're learning from data. I don't want to do dry presentation. My style normally is storytelling. By storytelling, meaning I'll use cases, make some references to how major companies are innovating themselves or moving forward, whether it's industries like farming or other newer industries in energies and all that. I'll give you some examples of that. But mostly, if you walk away, if anything, let me be part of the inspiration. I want to inspire you to look ahead, the art of possibilities, I call it. Let's for a moment suspend what I call the disbelief in what's possible and give yourself an opportunity to believe in the art of possibilities. There are 3 characteristics when you're innovating with data. You have to think ahead. You have to break through traditional thinking. You have to look at what the patterns will teach us. Data tells us a lot, story. The patterns do give us a lot of that. And then if anything, if you have a 1% improvement in anything you do, whether as a professional, academia, business, whatever you want to call it, that 1% improvement in outcome, it could easily translate in millions of dollars sometimes, or quite frankly, let's not even put dollars associated with that. I call it high impact. Earlier, I acknowledged some of the thinking and some of the thought process. If you get to the book, Big Data Revolution by Rob Thomas, executive at IBM, a dear friend of mine, he has a lot of things there that I think you'll enjoy, not only the reading, but some of my examples will be brought up in that book as well. Then I wanted to acknowledge other colleagues that I've named here. So let's get started, because if I wait for the main topic, there'll be continuous coming, which is a good news. Let's talk about 3 distinct, what I call waves of innovations. If I wanted to put it categorically in 3 pillars, I refer to industrial revolution. This was the birth of, and by the way, this is only revolving around 200 years. So the industrial revolution, of course, it was the power of machines and basically being able to, take traditional work that we had to do and, create a revolution that is still today, some of it is coming across. We transitioned into what I call the internet revolution, the power of networking, connectivities, and automations and all gave us the platform to be more connected, to be more disruptive together with new ideas, with new thinking, with discoveries, with research. And the shift to what I call industrial internet, companies like General Electric, how they're taking their innovative approaches. Why is it that they're buying $1 billion software company? Because they're not in the business of software, yet they see the value of data and the value of creativity and innovations and being basically having the foresight with that. So they made acquisition of $1 billion software company just to be part of their portfolios of their services and offerings. So these 3 give us a good view that in just recent 2 centuries, how we've gone from industrial to the industrial internet. I also like to highlight what I call what you can achieve by 3 again, pillars, three approaches with the data. If you think of data, what data could do in three categoric ways, yes, it will provide you with a competitive advantage. Now, competitive advantage comes in different ways. You could out-service competition. You could have products that are augmented with what data helps you to package and deliver unique offerings regardless of the businesses you are. If you're a company like CoreLogic, for instance, that they have tremendous data in a real estate-oriented business, but yet by packaging analytics and doing some creative packaging and delivering to their customers, you'll be amazed the kind of empowerment that brings. So competitive advantage is definitely tied to data. Data could give you that competitive edge. You could look at data as what I call you're improving just simply some existing products or some existing services. Yes, in some ways that's still competitive and it does give you some competitive edge or advantage, but for most part, you know, it's really, again, trying to outposition you by way of your offerings. So data could be considered as a competitive advantage. Data could be an augmenting value as what I call improvement to existing products or businesses. And data itself could be a product. If you're Experian, let's say, and you cleverly take that, or you're Dun & Bradstreet, take all the collection of data in the right way with sensitivity to governance and privacy and all that, yet that data could be packaged and offered to a partner company like Discovery, that, you know, you get your scorecards, you know, as part of the product that you're buying from your, you know, credit card company. So the value add, it's in these three categoric area. You'll have it as a product, you'll have it as a competitive advantage, or you'll have it as a value add service or product. Let's make room. Some people are coming in, and again, it's because of the walking distance. I apologize on behalf of DataCon, you know, a little bit signage was not properly done. So I'll pause for just half a minute, let these colleagues have a seat, and then I'll continue. Earlier, to those of you who came in, we talked about waves of innovations, three categoric waves, and now we talked about how data could be leveraged in business in these three categoric ways, not to repeat myself. And now that the door is closed, let me go to my other slides. We live in a digital era. People talk about digital enterprise in so many different ways. And some yet are questioning what is digital enterprise. Yes, we know everything that we touch, even our refrigerators are becoming digitized by way of the new innovative approaches. It'll take a picture of whatever is in there, it'll automatically link it to Amazon, basically have you order your foods. I mean, these are all what the age of digitization is all about. But if you look at it still from a practical view of the business, if I can share that with you, from the business perspective, you look at 4 pillars. I always go by pillars. You know, the 4 pillars, you know, you have to truly be focused on a customer. So I call it how to build the digital front end for having smarter, better customers and really improve customer satisfactions, you know. So whatever you do, it's important that you keep the customer in mind. Then there's your supply chain. You have to keep in mind, you know, the logistics, you know, how to transact in a connected enterprise, you know, with your partners, regardless of the business you're in, whether you're in retail, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in service, it really doesn't matter. It touches all, including healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and so on. So I'd say how to transact faster to supplier network and share smart data securely in a governance fashion. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, how to connect the digital asset, the data assets, because you want to openly share these things, but still you have to have an infrastructure and governance in place to be able to do it. And the last pillar, most important one at the same time, is the workforce, meaning your own workers. You know, how do you inspire them to be more engaged with all these different pillars? Because if you leverage the data smartly, you know, you could go beyond. So this is, in my personal view, these are the 4 pillars of what the digital enterprise is all about. Many of you have heard people talk about data as the new oil. And of course, you've heard the 3 V's, and some even call it 4 V's. Volume, velocity, variety, and we're referring to data, of course, meaning data is not always just structured data. Data by way of velocity means streaming data, real-time data, on the edge. Volume speaks for itself. Everything is generating transactional logs, whether it's the web log, whether it's the application log, whether it's the machine log. So many logs are being created. All of this data has so much information and intelligence in it if you're able to create patterns and look at these patterns and learn from that. So I'll talk about that a little bit more here. I think it'll make sense if I say, when we're looking for oil, everything from exploration to transportation, how do we draw these parallels between, you know, what we learned from oil and how we basically, what do we do with the data? So when it comes to exploration, yes, data is anywhere. Nowadays, especially, is in all sort of formats. Social businesses generating much higher volume data. IoT devices, you know, literally you have RFIDs and, you know, chips in so many technologies that every one of them, they're creating so much information for you. So the ability to capture that data, and I always say, how do you harvest and harmonize that data to be meaningful for some sort of an outcome, for some sort of a predictive outcome? So think of what we do in the oil. We explore, we find it, then we do the drilling, we do the recovery, we do, you know, again, the term distillations, refining. You don't just go from discovering to pumping the gas, you know, it goes through so much more process. So if you think the 7 stages of what the oil goes through, that's what's all about with the data. You have to be patient, you have to understanding. To just get it from the source, yes, you could do a lot with it. To capture streaming data and be able to draw some conclusions or some insights out of it, it's possible. A lot of companies, a lot of businesses, a lot of, you know, academias are doing that. But garbage in is garbage out. You know, in other words, if you don't really do all the right things, if you don't properly catalog it, if you don't put the disciplines of master data management and all of that. So you have to be conscientious and cognizant of the fact that what it takes to be able to really draw what you want out of it. And using data-driven business decision making, in the earlier days, practical question was always, from the business side, was how am I doing? How is the business doing? You know, and of course in the early days it was all about reporting, right? But no more reporting, and some companies still do reporting. It's everything now, you know, visualizations, tools, you know, the new self-service BIs, they're providing you that. But that's only one level, right? You're asking how am I doing? It gives you some scorecards or some information about that. But once you kind of get a sense of what are you doing, the next question is why? You know, why is my business behaving this way? So you want to do the analytics. So the why leads into the analytics part. And then once you know the why, you're asking yourself, well, how do I improve? Okay, I saw the report or I saw the discovery. I understand why it's behaving this way, But what I'm not sure is how to make now better decisions. What do I do next? So the importance of that is whether you're in finance and you're adopting what I call corporate performance management tool or enterprise planning for forecasting and all that, this leads into the new era of advanced analytics, predictive analytics. So we'll talk a little bit about that and the methodologies or the disciplines that you need to adopt. But when you're asking those questions, you cannot look at them also single dimensionally. You can. A finance department can look at those three rings and only look at it from their own perspective. But same thing, if you're a product, if you're HR, if you're any of these other circle organizations that I have there, they could look at it in a single dimension. But to look at things multidimensionally and to look at the power of that and the power of sharing that information across all these rings, it's a powerful thing, especially when it's all data related and you're capturing data and you're interrelating it. Everything from, yes, how am I doing with the product? What is my customer doing? Why are they behaving this way? How am I servicing them? So all of that, and especially then when you couple that with predictive analytics. If you want to look at the journey that we've taken from what I call the business intelligence day, some people call it the maturity curve, you can see in the initial day, although the focus was a little bit more to create automations, yeah, people looked at the reporting and then dashboardings and all that. But nowadays, with the arrivals of the big data and cloud and all of these other areas, you have no choice not to look at the past, just how I'm doing, but to learn from the past. But what is that data collectively in its pattern is telling you about the future? So it's more predictive, prescriptive even. It's giving you answers, the birth of artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's giving you the ability to, run algorithms, of course, smartly done with the right data. You could have a better way of what should happen, what's the next thing to do. At SysTech, our blueprint is kind of these sort of steps. Again, earlier in my introduction, some of you missed it. I said, always look for not just, okay, how do you ingest the data, how do you capture the data, but the most important thing is how do you harvest and harmonize it by way of cataloging it, doing smarter discovery, integration with other system connectivities and all, and so on. Meaning, yes, we all use some sort of a discovery with analytics, but to take the adoption of what I call AI, ML, data science capabilities, it totally takes you to a different level of thinking. Having said that, most people are nowadays talking about data science, and even database administrators are redoing their resumes. They're calling themselves data science because they feel they can get more money out of it. And of course, 3 months into it, somebody calls bullshit on it, if I may say that. That is a big difference between data science and being a data administrator or this or database administrator. Not to devalue each of these roles, but meaning I rather call us more of a data citizens, because we all need to be better, smarter at how we leverage, use data. We have an obligation, even I'll have a slide I'll show you later on, that regardless of our businesses, even doctors, if you look at the curriculum, even at this institution, what they're teaching in a medical school, it's all still focused with what I call, and I don't mean to say the school, all institutions, they're still opinion-based. They're still, yes, they teach you about the bio aspect of it, biochemistry aspect of it, and they'll teach you about pharma side of it, but it's still awful lot of reliance on the historic, rather than, I call it, the doctors need to be also data citizens. For them to be able to look at a lot of the research data coming in from real-time evidence of pharmaceuticals or clinical development, you have to be able to transform and transition yourself by way of thinking that yes, you have core competency, you're surgical, you're whatever, but in order to leverage the data, the smart way, you have to be data citizen. And to be data citizens is not an easy thing, but all of these things are already in place. Whether it's the information technology team or the businesses or the process, these things are coming to play. So it makes the doctor, the physicians, or the provider, if it's the insurance companies or the payers, all of that, much more sensible to what needs to be done. Quite frankly, there'll be pills created in a matter of 24, 48 hours in some researches, and it'll be delivered to you, customized to your chemistry, your blood pressure, your this, that. You no longer buy generic that is fit for everybody to take that cholesterol. It'll be cholesterol pill for you, that helps you, because the ability to do that, the data that supports that research and all that is there. It's just we have to be less bureaucratic a little bit about security is important, but the governance, when I say less bureaucratic, we can't hold ourselves back from these innovations. I have this slide. It's kind of a methodology to achieve these things. Again, it's not mine. I got it from basically the Boston Consulting Group, but literally it's aligned with what we do at SysTech. Basically said you have to have a better sense. You have to understand the data, the signal coming in. You need to be able to experiment with that data. You need to collaborate, and you need to be responsive and act. So if you just look at these 4 dimensions again, by way of being an adaptive analytics company, all you need to do is fine-tune yourself to receive the signal right, to experiment with it, to be able to collaborate with others and be responsive and reactive. Same thing, we take different methodologies to this. Most companies follow these, and they're a little bit in a different form and shape, but ultimately, the way I look at it, whatever you do when you're looking at different data sources, what you want to do is create infostream. Infostream is a level of intelligence that you bring in. So yes, you ingest the data. You have to apply some domain knowledge to it, some domain expertise to be able to do smarter analytics with it. And to be able to do that, and of course, you need a data management strategy, a data management platform that supports that, and to be able to fully realize, its possibilities. Again, this is a methodology. If it's not adaptive analytics, use what works for you, but you can't just grab the data without going through the process and understanding it to get true benefit. Like I said earlier, otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out. I have another view of it that we have to make it easier for the business users by way of process, by way of their interactions, create the applications that are more meaningful to them. That's the interface. I call this more of a business view. This logical business view, you have to keep it simple for the users, but yet you can't subordinate the security, data governance, the data asset side of it. This, you can't subordinate it anymore, but yet you don't restrict yourself too much that become itself a hurdle for you, that you can't take the next steps. The management side of it, it needs to be either with your information technology team, or nowadays, even the information technology, it's being pushed to others, i.e., yes, AWS or Google or Microsoft may provide you with the platform, new data architectures and all of that, that makes it much easier. But that makes you a little bit less dependent internally, but not to say completely yet. But the point is the management of these data assets, data sources, where they're coming from, how secured are they, could they be shared in a virtualized way or not, that's important. But the most important part of it is these three items that I've noted inside. If you think of what I call the answer fabric, that's the brain of your analytics. And if that's the brain of the analytics, the data engines become the nirvana. They're the nervous system. And the data virtualization gives you the ability to have access to the data, but not to introduce risk of moving the data constantly from one place to another, because you can secure it with the governance, but yet you can open it. You can open it so your customers, your suppliers, your users, in the right fashion, they have access to it. So this is the business view, to have a smart approach to data. I have some use cases here. I'll highlight them. If you want to really drill down to these use cases, I'll give you a specific book that goes through tremendous detail, highlighting all of this for you. But let me at least touch few of them. I talk about the evolution of farming. You know, farming started way back. God, you know, it was mainly substance farming, right? Just food, to put food on a table, and then, oh, you save some for the winter time, you know. Then they realized farming could be profitable business, you know, so you start going in the direction of the crops, you know, doing more of it. And we reached the age of, in the, I can't even read it, but I think it's 1900, the power farming transitioned from a little bit from the horse. You know, you use animals, right, to help you pave the way and all that. I'm just trying to show how we've gone from just the food to the table, that the industry that is complete reliance for us, you know, and then the machine farming, and then you come to application of data with the sensors to feel the soil. If you want to grow potatoes, how do you know what's underneath? Because it's not even on a surface where you can look at the potato to see, oh, do I have some diseases on it or whatever. So how do you smartly, with the age of innovation, with the data, you can tell it's overwatered, less watered, not watered. All the farmings now, they're looking at that, and this way the yield for potato is to a degree that is unbelievable. What does that mean? We have better access to it. It's good, it looks good, and all of that. So think those things in mind, but how you achieve that, there are some details in that book. You can look at that. Earlier, maybe I make a note, I said the doctors will have a math degree. And seriously, in order for them to serve their patients better, there is no other choice, because we live in the data era. You have to be a good data citizens, and if you're not, your effectiveness is purely opinion-based, it's not fact-based. So, and doctors are not alone in this, other businesses, you know. If you look at the insurance companies, you know, how actuarial started was always to look at the risk is equal what? Hazard, I think, multiplied by vulnerability multiplied by potential. Basically, they had certain formulas and they got good at it, and they would mitigate the risk based on that. But that alone is no longer good. You have a lot of algorithms and all, but if you want to insure your car, a dynamic model works for you. If you're not driving that car all the time, you know, and if you have IoT devices that is capturing some of the behaviors and all that, you can size the pricing accordingly. If it's areas of insurance that the weather pattern is known, and you factor all of that with the data. So what I'm really saying is, insurance as a business, the way we knew it, it's changing dramatically. And that change is here. You no longer will have traditional policies. You'll have dynamic policies based on a lot of different things. But where is all of that coming from? It's data. Data is driving it. Retail is a great example. Think of it, as a famous saying is, you want to go from having individual customers to, just 100 customers to 100 individual customers. I used to talk to the retail people. They would say, we kind of have a feeling 50% we think we know what we're doing, but we really don't know which 50% is it, So the point being, when you're walking to Nordstrom, and as you walk in, when you're getting pushed off a lot of advertising customized to you, what color you like, what shoes you wear, all of that, it's data driven. They have your patterns, they know what you buy. So the power, it's extreme. The customer relationships, with the CRM systems and all that, the experience. How frustrated do you get when you're calling your cable company and you just hung up with them, or they don't know, again, why you're calling? But the power of, having that log right away popping for the second call that says, this customer has called you 3 times, is frustrated with this issues, whether it's the bill, whether it's the technical problems, So the whole business model for customer service is changing, because whether it's the help desk or whether it's the customer representatives, they look at you, or you walk into the bank, the bank recognizes you differently than before. They pretty much everything, the analytics, the dashboard behind the scene tells you much more faster about you. Now you may say, oh, that's invasion of my privacy, but if you play it in the right balance, the effectiveness for you to get loan approval, or even, I was talking to Experian colleagues, I said, you have a 300 million target customers. Out of this 300 million, 60 million of it, you could be selling him some services, because they're not the same as the other guys. Their behavior is different. Have you looked at how they're paying their electrical bills, their rent? So you don't just do credit scores based on a $3,000 limit of a credit card and how this person paid that. But have you looked at the profile of basically the potential customers, that it's paying their bills on time and they're good at it, and but sure, they had some mishaps here and there, but shouldn't you enhance that credit score that gives you open opportunities to basically then work with another partner to give them a credit card to that customer, because they're a good customer. It just had some mishaps. Unfortunately, circumstances were different. This is all the power of big data and harnessing that power of the big data. Intelligent machines, I don't need to say that. I mean, Tesla, next day it automatically services itself. It automatically, knows diagnostics and all of that, so it prevents you from regular going to the garage or whatever. So the new innovations with cars even, it makes the serviceability of it, the intelligence, go beyond. The power of drones, the power of, windmills. I think I'm running out of time, but okay, so I'm rushing, I apologize, but even in the government, quite frankly, the revolution or the uprising that happened in Egypt and Cairo, quite frankly, the extent that it changed the whole Middle East in many ways, sure, it was the cause and effect of, rulers, tyrants, and poverties and all that, but the impact of social, economic factors, being able to, these students or people in the streets broadcast, through their iPhones and all of that, it changed the whole, political environment in the Middle East. So many of them went away, or the rulers were taken away. That's the power of people, the socials, the data. It's created that. In the energy sector, in India, by the way, India is the third largest producer of energy, after United States and China. 300 million people were out of electricity and led to 600 million people being out of electricity. Why? Simply because the grids and all of that, without the sensors there, without being proactive to do preventive, it just didn't, it failed. The grids failed. We learned from that ourselves in the United States and what we did. Look for the patterns. I can give you the book. The book that I recommend is the Big Data Revolution. It'll give you what are the characteristics, how you learn from it with segmentation, with classifications and all of that. It's a great book, easy reading book. It's by my good friend Rob Thomas of IBM. And if you need specifics on that, you can email me. I'll send it to you. It's joeyb@systechusa.com. So a lot of this is in detail for you. And ultimately, I don't want you to neglect the human element. Yes, it takes innovation and technology, but it's still about people. It's still about process too. So combination of all of these together, it's what makes the ability to harvest the power of big data possibility. I'm summarizing it here, same thing, technology, process, and people. And the one other thing that I want to highlight, it's in the balanced scorecard. Dr. Kaplan and Norton align strategic thinking with operational innovation in these 4 categoric areas, which is the financial aspect, the customer aspect, the process, and the learning. We have to be a learning organization regardless, whether we're in academics or whether we're in business. Today, we're in the age of data, enterprise data. It's cloud, analytics, mobile, and social, CAMS. Don't neglect them. The collective capacity of these functions will get you where you need to be, whether you're a student, professional, academia, or mature business person. Apologize because I had to repeat myself in the beginning because of the crowds and all that. I hope you took some good things away. If there's questions, I don't have if you have time, but you can come and see me in private. I'll be waiting around. Thank you.